When Inho was a kid, her dad said some weird stuff to her, and her mom kept him on a short leash, even though he was sometimes right. Once he bought her some treats and begged her not to tell mom. He said there'd be hell to pay, and she kept it a secret, just like he asked. He told her to stop caring what others thought, to put herself first, live for herself, and not end up as clueless as her old man. He'd also talk about God, but claimed he wasn't up in the clouds. He said God was whoever handed you a paycheck. He swore that even with your pride trampled, a long, narrow road would lead to victory, though he sure didn't walk it himself. Manager Yoon was ranting in the office, complaining how they kept getting sent greenhorn trainees. He screamed it was a death sentence for the project. The boss was panicking the contract might collapse. This was their biggest deal ever, and the overseer still hadn't shown up. Someone reported she had a quick stop to make, so she'd be late. But it's been 30 minutes already. That overseer was Ha Yun-ho, the fastest climbing star in the company, promoted to department head in just 5 years. She was a workhorse, a rising star. Women like her? They called them wolves or foxes. She was both, wrapped in one package. Soon, Inho walked in, apologizing for being late. Said she'd stop by to grab a bottle of wine on the way. Things worked out smooth, but no one got how she knew Manager Yoon's favorite vintage. She admitted he'd gone wild over that drink at a product event, but the staff was just as impressed by her sharp talk. Inho knew they'd mess it up. To stir things up, she dropped a partner dinner idea on them. She rolled her eyes when the team leaned into pasta, explaining how a move like that won't build any kind of business. She said you gotta bend over backwards to please the client, not yourself. And soon after, she was heading back to the office. Inwo wanted to leave separately and declared the employees could go ahead and rag on her all they wanted. The next morning, art director Won Eojin couldn't believe Inwo had a meeting with Kim Ju-young and asked how it went. But Inwo just told her to cut the dumb questions, reminding her that she's got this. Though Hwan kept marveling anyway. Ha promised her that if she wasn't on the board in 10 years, she'd stop pretending they didn't know each other. Later, she remembered a new hire's coming next week, though they said there were no plans for new hires. Inwo had no idea if he had experience, but he's green anyway, so she'd have to walk her through the basics. You gotta teach the newbie to keep his mouth shut and look at the floor. Basically, act like a good little puppet. Hwan let it slip to a coworker they'd started calling her old maid, but Inwo didn't see the big deal. Eojin told her to stop living for work and find someone, but Ha didn't think love was her life's beat. Hwan suggested an office romance. You get to see each other daily and skip the dating costs. But Inwo wasn't interested. That'd just derail hard workers who live for their jobs. Plus, she hates office romances, and especially not with Eojin. The art director didn't get it at first, then told her coworker to stop bringing up that player. Then Hwan suggested trying a stranger, explaining the main thing is seeing if the vibe's right. And she's got dating experience. Everything should be clear from the start. And once you realize you can't function without this person, the game's already over. Inho told her coworker to knock it off with the nonsense and get to work. She also made it clear she should stop reading those dumb novels. Some guy live-streamed himself at a friend's birthday party. Then he decided to show off the birthday boy too. That guy was June. His friend thought he was just an average dude, but also a natural-born schemer. As soon as the camera pointed his way, June was already gone from the lounge chair he'd been chilling on. June called his grandpa, explaining he was at the library and had to power off his phone during study time. The old man heard music in the background and went off on him, reminding June his first day of work was tomorrow. He told June to stop acting like a brainless moron. But June remembered, even bought the suit for the occasion. The grandpa kept grumbling. After all, June still had school to attend, and his inheritance depended entirely on his behavior. The old man made it clear. If June didn't shape up, he'd be saying goodbye to his share of the will. June reassured him he'd thought it through and would devote himself to work. Hell, he even planned to film a video for his grandpa tomorrow. Then the old man ordered him to get back to his place immediately and send a video of himself walking into the apartment. June explained he had an important catch-up with friends, so the grandpa gave him exactly 30 minutes total. The friend filming noticed the birthday boy sneaking out and told him to have fun without him. His friends begged him to stick around. The good stuff was just starting, and more people were showing up. But he was already gone. Inho left work late one night, totally drained, swearing she'd leave on time the next day. She hailed a taxi, but waited 30 minutes and the car never showed up for some reason. She was seething when she finally saw a taxi approaching, and bolted toward it, only for some guy to rush over at the same time. They both grabbed the door handle at once, glaring daggers at each other, refusing to back down. Inho noticed he was kinda cute but told him to step aside. She'd gotten there first. June refused, arguing he'd been waiting an hour and had somewhere to be. They bickered over who was first, neither willing to give an inch. Suddenly, June pointed at the ground, saying Cash was laying there. When Inho glanced down, he slipped into the taxi fast. As he left, he sarcastically said it was nice meeting her and told the driver to hurry up. Furious that he'd tricked her so smoothly, Inho threatened, "If we cross paths again, you can say goodbye to your life." The next morning, June showed up to work and was shocked to see Inho there. She froze too, speechless. Their boss, introducing them, had no idea why they'd gone silent. The two were already eating each other up with their eyes. Inho woke up at 5 a.m., instantly convincing herself the day would be amazing, then started getting ready. First, she did a 15-minute meditation session with forest sounds, birds chirping, leaves rustling in the breeze. A narrator told listeners to start the day with renewed energy, followed by breathing exercises. Next, she had to thank something, and Inho did. Grateful she could go to work and make some cash. She was thankful she had a place to go, so she counted herself lucky. She was ready to work every day, even put in overtime. Plus, she had her own desk in the office. Every penny of her paycheck went to utilities, insurance, delivery pensions, and apartment rent. Inho even thanked her mom for basically forcing her to buy that fancy air compression foot massager. She thanked the universe for missing that taxi yesterday, forcing her to bike for almost an hour and not get home till 1 a.m. The girl kept insisting she was lucky, even as she knew all this crap was driving her insane. She still remembered how that stranger made her look like a fool, but kept telling herself everything was fine. Even the guy's words, that she'd end up living on the streets forever, Inho tried to brush off like they'd never existed. But emotions got the best of her, and she screamed at the top of her lungs she'd kill that bastard. She remembered his face all too well. After the outburst, she calmed down a bit, then decided to try meditation again to find some peace. Then her phone buzzed with a message. Her landlord wanted to raise the deposit, and she had to check the new terms. Inho looked around the place and couldn't figure out why this dump now cost 30 million won. She showed up at work in a seriously foul mood. Her coworkers didn't even dare approach her. The thing was, they were all annoyed she kept coming in first again, but still showed up for work somehow. The boss also told everyone to follow her lead, arriving early just like this girl. The team thought it was hilarious, and Inho caught wind of it, so she asked them to spill what had them laughing. She kept pushing everyone to show up an hour early to boost productivity. She grabbed a coffee while the team realized she'd caught their Slack chat and had them all on the defensive. Inho came back to the elevator with coffee, and a guy asked her to hold the door. She instantly figured he was the newbie. Turns out it was Jawoon. Back turned, he admitted it was his first day and mentioned the office looked smaller than he'd expected. She caught sight of his sneakers, super familiar, and then realized he was filming on his phone. Inho instantly covered her face with her coffee cup to avoid being filmed and snapped at him to cut it out. He explained he was documenting his first day for his grandpa and kept rolling. He wasn't about to quit just because some people didn't like it and turned back to his recording. She kept grumbling, cup over her face, muttering no one would care about his dumb vlog. Jawoon insisted he had to film the office entrance and promised to blur her face in the edit. Inho declared filming was a no-go, so he vowed to shoot the grandpa stuff in the office instead. He shut off the camera, and when Inho lowered her cup, she saw it was the guy who ditched her outside yesterday. Looks like he didn't recognize her, so she reminded him about the taxi snub and his laugh at her. June kept talking, saying she probably meant the club's booth and asked her not to tell anyone. He didn't want rumors to spread, but Inho explained again that they met at the taxi. He even looked her in the face. The guy thought she was just a newbie and admitted he was too, which totally got under her skin. On the floor, the manager met them, already waiting to introduce them and asked them to follow him. At that moment, they couldn't say a word to each other, and the boss told June to work hard. He also explained that Specialist Ha is a pro, and he needs to learn everything from her, even how to breathe. The guy got the manager role, and Inha politely explained a conference room was already prepped for him. When they were alone for a second, the girl pointed out his shoelaces were untied, and he instantly checked his shoes. But it was Inha's joke. Then she sarcastically thanked him for the bow, trying to humiliate him. At that moment, June remembered how the night before he asked her to look at a coin, and she bowed to him too. Now the girl expressed hope they'd get along, stating a sharp memory is vital for the job. A staff member approached the chairman and reported the man was assigned to his department as ordered. He also said the guy showed up on time, wore a suit, and the boss wondered if he'd styled his hair. Then he ordered the guy's card to stay blocked, since he earned the right to spend after earning it first. The chairman worried he'd be alone, so kept circling this dumb little troublemaker. After telling the staff member to let him know if anything came up, the boss sent him on his way and started feeling pretty damn good about how everything was going. In-ho was looking over the new hire's resume. It was just a single line, but they'd still snatched him up right away. Riding the elevator with him, she caught sight of his perfectly styled hair, top-notch watch, and brand-name sneakers. But in her head, she was already writing him off as just a charming disaster wrapped in a fancy package. Still, she told him to pretend today was their first meeting, strictly on the clock though. Before that, In-ho wanted to straighten out that whole mess and made the guy apologize. June realized he'd been a total jerk to her and said sorry. Then she brought up the resume. On paper, he looked like a total rookie, but from the grades listed, she could tell he'd been having the time of his life in school. In-ho asked if he even knew what the job required, and he just smirked. I'm a genius, obviously. He'd gotten an academic award, was in the Gifted Kids Club, and was a total lightning-fast learner. She flipped to the page he'd pointed out, and it was blank as a clean slate, which totally blew June away. Then In-ho made him spell out the acronym, since he'd better know what he was getting into. He knew it was the bridge between ads and production, so he'd be squeezed from both sides. No more being all embarrassed about apologizing, like he'd been lately. Now he'd have to treat it like a sacred rule. No matter how gross it felt, June had to keep his manners up and pretend he was into it, even if he clearly wasn't. Even if he doesn't want to talk, he should start the conversation first. And a guy should know how to apologize. Even if a natural disaster hits, he should apologize like it's his fault. But if he doesn't like it, he can quit. In-ho asked June to send her the test assignments he did during the interview. Then she showed him his workstation and introduced him to his teammate, Lee Young-wol. After that, In-ho was about to leave. June asked what he should do today, and she told him to just sit quietly. Today he's on standby until she calls him, and the guy realized she absolutely hates him. For a while, June just stared at the monitor, not knowing what to do. Then he asked Lee Young-wol for advice. He suggested getting coffee or listening to music, even asked to go home, but his coworker totally ignored him. June noticed he wasn't getting reprimanded for mistakes on day one. Guess that's the teasing they warned him about. He remembered again that the mentor thinks crap of him, so he's doomed, and even considered quitting. The chairman showed up with an order not to cause any fuss over some minor incident. That guy promised to freeze all his cards, so the guy has to take care of himself or he'll starve. Kim Joo-woon was curious where In-ho went. She just rudely brushed past him. He was the head of the first planning group and thought her behavior was another display of rudeness. Kim approached Young-wol, who promised to tell the manager that Joo-woon was looking for her. He told me to do exactly that, and also check with the stuck-up boss if acting like this was okay at the meeting. He reminded me how she openly shamed them back then, and he couldn't figure out why she'd treat subordinates like that. If she skipped Kim's meeting and came to his instead, she should at least apologize afterward. Young Mai just casually nodded, and June decided this guy was just like his boss. Everything was different under his leadership, and then he had Lee tell In-ho to drop by. The other staff saw Kim back with the second team stirring the pot again, but they didn't get why he kept doing it. Both managers were popular, but June had been bugging In-ho ever since she started here. They kept poaching advertisers from each other. Wild rivalry. Recently, In-ho ran a business workshop in his place, and now the department head's intentionally stirring up trouble with the staff. June noticed a new face he hadn't seen before. Lee confirmed it was his first day and asked June to say hi. The guy with the earbuds didn't hear them, but June wasn't fazed by stuff like that. June decided to go first with the greeting, but the second he spotted the earbuds, he yanked them out. The kid turned and introduced himself, saying it'd be no cakewalk working under In-ho. June told him to consider moving to another team, then started grilling him about his education and work history. June just told the manager to stop bugging him and leave. Too much noise. Lee Young-won even paled at that moment. Didn't expect such boldness from a newbie on the first day. Ju-young looked annoyed too, and the mood at the table got really tense. The guy caught the president's glare and apologized to Kim for acting rude. Then he introduced himself, but told him to go back to his seat since it was loud here. Young-won thought this was idiotic. How did they even hire this guy? Yoon-ho met up with Do Yoon-hwa and complimented her flawless style. Do already knew she had sharp eyes, then asked what the specialist wanted to talk about. Ha wanted to talk about the newbie assigned to her team and asked what was up with the closed interview. Yoon-hwa didn't like him, but she needed people fast, so she moved quickly. Ha didn't argue, just thought she'd been warned ahead of time. She was kind of bummed the guy had zero experience. Ha also wondered why Do was being so nice, and Do reminded her about the pool party post. It was a video showing how to make a drink with cheap whiskey and energy drink, but reposts spiked because of one recipe. Yoonho suggested using stars in the video to promote the product. Ha thought it was a joke, but Do explained the pool party was set up by his friend. It was all for advertising, and the whiskey sold out thanks to that video. This reminded Inhwa that Ha had been a newbie once, too, working her tail off to bring something fresh. The planning department head asked Ha to keep an eye on June since the chairman's counting on her. The girl couldn't believe this guy was under the chairman's thumb. It just didn't add up. Do admitted the advertiser loved Inho's pitch and asked her to team up with the newbie on a project. She suggested grabbing Pak's creative team and reminded her Ha was the perfect fit. On the way back, Inho didn't get why Pak. She felt super awkward around the guy. She even wondered if Do was trying to set her up. And now she was praying the newbie didn't get dragged into trouble. Meanwhile, Juyong lost his cool, not getting why the newbie called him loud, while Lee tried to calm him down. Kim asked again how long he'd been working there. When Ha walked in, clueless about what was going on, Juyong shot back that the guy just wouldn't stop being rude, even on his first day here. Plus, he was chilling here with headphones on, talking without even taking them off, while June insisted headphones were totally allowed. Inho grabbed a chocolate bar from the desk, handed it to her coworker, and said, "Don't be mad, just have a snack." Then she went on about how he'd helped her through training and nailed the research for the comparative ad project. She swore she'd be in deep trouble without him, and that actually calmed Juyong down. He downplayed it, saying he didn't do anything big, but Inho kept pushing that she now owed him a favor. She explained the new guy just didn't hear him call out, so he messed up, then reminded everyone how much she respects Kim. The tension broke, and Juen even laughed, telling his coworker to cut the flattery. He brought up how she nailed the negotiations earlier and asked if she'd take the new deal herself. She agreed and promised to train the new guy. After all, he's her mentee. Lunch break rolled around, and Inho headed to the rooftop, where June found her and offered a drink. She didn't get why he was treating her, so he explained it was a small thank you for the recent incident. Inho pointed out that because of him, Kim questioned his own hearing, but she saw the new guy had an excuse for everything. June liked how she stood up for him to that weirdo. It was like a drama scene. He even felt a bit dramatic, like he'd become a romance novel hero, and his lines just hit it off with Ha. But she reminded him she hates arrogant types. He talks over everyone and doesn't care about his coworkers. What really grinds her gears is how he's trying to copy her so awkwardly, flexing like he's something when he's nothing. After speaking up, she challenged June to prove his worth if he wanted to stick around. She still declined the coffee, saying she'd already had 3 cups that morning and didn't want a heart attack. That evening, on his way home in the car, June filmed again, calling it a rough and stressful day. He had to drive, but his hands were shaking right now. Still, he finally got what his grandpa had meant. Working at the office is really tough because problems keep popping up. The guy knew he'd totally messed up today, and then he remembered Yinho had promised to train him. June also remembered all the other stuff, but didn't want to dwell on it. He just blurted out how much he missed his car. Just as he was about to kiss the steering wheel, one of his coworkers knocked on the window and scared the hell out of him. He tried to explain he'd just sent the video to the girl, but the guy overheard him admit driving would be tough. He said the old man would freak out and made June hand over the keys to avoid a mess. He thought he'd get a ride home, but the old man said he had to take public transit. Plus, his car's way too flashy, but if he really needs it, he can take the company car. He was stunned and started begging for the keys, trying to strike a deal, but the old man wouldn't budge. June didn't want to part with his car, but he had no choice. He hopped on the subway. Riding public transit was pure torture. For those few minutes, he felt like his legs had turned to jello. Later, the employee told the chairman the grandson kept calling and asked what to do. The old man finally picked up, and June lost it, screaming why the hell the old man hadn't answered his calls. He wanted to know why they treated him like this and demanded his car back. But the chairman just got mad. He reminded him it was bought with the allowance he'd given him. So it was his, plain and simple. Grandpa said the clothes don't belong to the kid, but he'll give back the car, if one condition's met. The chairman needs a top rating from June's boss, Inhu. Only then does he get the car. The old man gave him 3 months. After that, he's got to land a full-time job on his own. The guy storms home, totally down in the dumps, no idea what's waiting in the shadows. As soon as he flicks on the lights, his friends pop out for a surprise. Congrats on becoming a grown-up. The crew threw a party, even hired a singer. Toasts start flying left and right. Jun's not vibing with the party. He tries to protest, but crash. A cake smacks him in the face. Gifts start piling up. Jun admits he screwed up and everyone's stunned. Inhu runs into her friend Yongjin, who's already heard about how the newbie messed up with Juyeon. She found out from a post, even offered to read it aloud, but Ha begged her to stop teasing. She remembers how that guy mocked her, then bolted home the second the clock hit 6. Back at Jun's place, the party's still rolling. Friends already know about his nightmare boss. One buddy suggests hitting on her to chill things out. Jun thinks his pal's wasted on beer, but he insists it's the best damn idea. Plus, he needs that top rating. Thing is, he's never worked in this kind of company before. My buddy already had some experience and swore it's impossible to become a pro in 3 months. Newbies don't even get real responsibilities. In 3 months, you're lucky if you can even get comfortable with the coworkers and the workload. But Jian already blew it. So the only option left is to start an office romance. Then he'll be too hooked to quit. Jian's face dropped at the suggestion, and his friends started asking how old his boss was and what she looked like. Without missing a beat, he said it'd be easier to hit on a coworker, and his friends started roasting him for it. Later, Jiun admitted he was wiped, needing a shower and a solid 8 hours of sleep. But they weren't letting up. Remembered how he always let the girl make the first move and never took initiative. Girls always came to him? Now picture what'll happen if he actually puts in some effort. Meanwhile, In-ho blew her friend's mind, thinking her protege was related to the chairman. Hwan guessed Ha would start expecting handouts and rocket to CEO twice as fast. In-ho saw 2 paths. Either she becomes the boss, or this guy takes off and her career goes up in smoke. Her job now was to give him an honest evaluation, and she'd do it no matter the cost. If this guy's a total washout, she'll boot him out the door without batting an eye. His friends kept reminding him his grandpa's no saint, but he vowed he'd be just as tough. He was dead certain In-ho would see his potential, and the company would be his in the end. The next day, Ha felt like crap, realizing she'd totally overdone it with the drinks at her friend's meetup. Eojin had already messaged her that Park had rounded everyone up extra early, and once again, Ha found herself thinking about that guy. Lost in thought, she almost missed her stop but managed to jump off just in time. She couldn't afford to be late. At the production department, Eojin confessed to her coworkers that whenever Park opened his mouth, it gave her more chills than the client. Others felt their hearts leap just at the thought of his review sessions, panic attacks lurking right around the corner. They felt like garbage in front of him, especially when he ripped into their reports, which looked like ads from a kiosk. Every time, that guy was never satisfied with their work, always making them start from scratch. But Park was a true master of his craft. He went at everything like a man possessed, and the results always blew people away. One employee recalled how, under one ad, people praised Eojin's work more than the models themselves. That didn't calm Ha down, though. She was praying today's project would finally get approved. They'd already redone it 30 times. Hwan decided she wasn't going to sleep a wink. She'd gather her courage and risk asking when this madness would end. As she delivered this charismatic promise with such flair, she had her back to the door and didn't notice Park walking in. The second group's creative director just calmly plopped down at his desk and suggested they start the meeting. Eugene asked for clarification if this was the project meeting and which number it was. Someone chimed in that it was the 17th, and Park offered to wrap it up today if everything looked good, asking them to show the work. They handed him all the paperwork, then anxiously waited for his response. Then the director declared everything was perfect. The team was thrilled this day had finally come, but then Park announced a client email had just arrived. It asked for a few more revisions and then a full list of changes they needed to make. Eojin and the others felt hit with a wave of dread, but that's reality. They'd even have to stay overnight today. Park decided to grab coffee before continuing, but Hwan figured he was just a psychopath for staying so calm. Another coworker noticed the director was stressed too. A slight eyebrow twitch, but it didn't comfort her. At the cafe, Park saw Yoonho ordering a triple espresso and guessed she was messing with death. She froze when she heard his voice behind her, and he asked for the same thing. Then he told Yoonho to buy him coffee and promised to treat her to lunch later. Lee Young-oh was asked to check the budget and send it by 11. He agreed, even though he wanted to go home. He even typed it into the spreadsheet for fun while stressing his new coworker was running late. Another team discussed how Director Park was always serious and didn't really get along with people. He even eats alone. Rumors spread he was divorced, and Eojin was convinced that was true. She'd seen his smile only 3 times in 5 years, once at a client, once at the boss. The third time, Pa smiled at Yoonho when he asked her to buy coffee and promised lunch. She told him she'd gladly treat him to a drink and even asked him to pick the pricier option. In-ha asked how his meeting was going, but the director caught her act right away. He said it wasn't fake. It was just adapting to the social game. If you like money, you gotta know how to butter people up. Pak remembered how pathetic her tries at that used to be. But now she's in charge, so it's pretty impressive. She told him to keep it professional. She wasn't his subordinate. At that moment, he pictured her as a pesky little cat. In-ha turned to hand him the coffee cup, and suddenly he was way too close. Ha's face lit up instantly. Her whole face, even her eyes. She immediately covered up, trying to hide her embarrassment. The director thought something got in her eye, but she snapped back that it was her contacts. Probably flipped. She walked off, and Pak admitted he was happy to see her. It brought back some memories. In-ha couldn't wrap her head around why she always got so worked up around this guy everyone called a genius. She reminded herself. She wasn't some groveling employee anymore. She was a rising star, a successful manager. Pak dropped the bomb that their next project would be a joint effort, then asked how the new guy was doing. He thought the new guy was a disaster too, but In-ha told him to chill. Pak apologized. He didn't mean to step on toes. He'd just seen the public chat Jin showed him. Ha assured him the new guy was top tier. She'd never get why people spew garbage like that. June was running late because he took the subway and cursed the entire way there. As soon as he hit the floor, he spotted In-ho and director Pak from across the room, totally confused why they were there. He realized they'd seen him and immediately apologized for the half-hour delay, saying he'd gotten lost in the subway. The guy promised starting tomorrow they'd see a completely different him, one who'd never be late again. Right then, his briefcase slipped from his hands and Pak gaped. This is the top rookie? In-ha and June kept walking together, the elevator falling into silence for a beat. The girl was pissed. Like, moments ago, she was singing his praises, and this weirdo just straight up let her down. June, meanwhile, was curious about the guy with his mentor, who looked seriously fancy and high-end. He asked about it, and Ha explained, "That's director Pak, the guy behind every hit in the production department." Then June remembered how she'd bragged to the director about him, calling him top tier, and it made him grin. He swore he'd never let In-ho down, while she face-palmed, wondering how she'd agreed to take on such a useless twerp. Then she snapped, "Reputation and time mean more than life for us. We work with people. Tardiness is unforgivable." But the guy had already flubbed in front of another team, so his reputation was toast. Except June wasn't buying it. Ha kept hammering. "You failed twice. You couldn't even show up by 9. Your career's falling apart, just like your crap." June shrugged. "I just forgot to zip my bag." But the girl lost it. He'd gone ahead and talked to her in front of Pak. Jun's gotta act like he's got a meeting with an advertiser, so he can't use his bag as an excuse for being late. In-ho figured he's just here to have fun. But to get a good grade and climb the career ladder, everything's gotta be perfect. The girl screamed she's flipping out over the comments section. Everyone's just tearing apart his little incident with Juyong. When Jun got to the office, Yoongyum handed him a commercial proposal. Something totally new to him. It was from a previous project. Valuable stuff inside. Lee wanted the colleague to check it out. No questions asked. He needs to use these since there's no templates online anymore. Then he's got to prepare a report. Jun thought he'd get something cooler. Client stuff wasn't his dream job, but the work still gotta get done. As the guy worked, Jungyeom kept an eye on him. Noticed the newbie was actually doing a decent job. Then they spotted In-ho in the doorway. Jun remembered his buddy's tip to play nice with that tough boss. Jun shook off those thoughts. Next thing, he asked the colleague to double-check his work. Lee gave him a thumbs up. Jun just shrugged. Said the sample was solid, so he followed it. Jungyeom already knew the newbie had manager Ha screaming again. Whole office heard her, but in his head, it was her being a stickler. She had her own stuff to learn. Newbie needs to take notes, though. Phone rang. Lee answered, listened for a sec, went pale. In-ho came over. Jungyeom explained. Had to head to the cosmetics shoot. She needed to handle something there. Ha and Jun hopped over right away, and the girl asked the director what the issue was. He realized not everyone knew about the extra casting. They had the storyboard, and Lee Hana was already approved. The director admitted her name was on the list from day one, but the advertiser pushed for a second casting. Another girl got picked. Ianwo pointed out they should have checked with Miss Pak Jin before filming started. Ha didn't get why they were filming outside. Sunscreen ads don't have to be out in the open. Meanwhile, Lee called Jun to check in, saying Inwo wasn't answering. Meanwhile, the actresses started bickering, and their yelling was loud enough to hear on the phone. Ha realized this was getting hot, so Jun called to cancel and report to the agency. But the manager told him to slow down. She was determined to get them to work it out. The girl headed over to the actresses, and the guy remembered his buddy's advice to make a move on her. But now he got what Lee meant and had to admit, traveling with her wasn't all bad. Inwo walked up to the girls, introduced herself, and Pa Jun started whining about not being told about the extra casting. Hana said the first one was mad not about the casting, but the competition. The girl denied it. Ha knew the casting wouldn't go smoothly. The girls kept fighting and throwing accusations. One blamed the other for all the drama. It looked like they were about to come to blows. June, meanwhile, kept a close eye on his mentor, curious how she'd handle it. Ha told the girls to calm down and promised she could help with their contract, but they weren't buying it. Inho promised to send the cancellation contract by tomorrow and said her team would cover the penalty fees. Then she explained they had to finish the shoot before the natural light faded, then walked them to their car. It was a shame. Park Ji-yeon had a solid reputation, but clearly hadn't bounced back from that recent mess. Ha asked Hana to shoot the next scene, but the sidelined rival cut in with a, "Wait a minute." They left her hanging. She didn't get why, and her legs started shaking under her. June stepped up to Ha and asked why she did that. Shouldn't they be trying to win her over? Inho shot back that they didn't have time, and in a different situation, she'd naturally try to smooth things over. But the guy figured Ha had planned it all along. She countered that the rival would do anything to keep Hana from booking the role. Then she showed her colleague the video where actress Park Ji-yeon went full trash-talking. It blew up as a scandal. Inho pointed out the video had already gone viral. Even if it was just rumors, that kind of dirt still tanks your image. This girl's reputation was in the toilet. This shoot was her lifeline, especially for that cosmetic ad. Plus, her ego's bruised. No wonder she's blowing a gasket over the second casting. Inho goaded her deliberately. Now all they could do was wait. She was dead certain it'd take about 20 minutes. Man, his heart was pounding. His mentor now looked like a straight-up demon to him. He said that girl wasn't gonna agree. June tried to argue, but Ha shushed him with a finger over his mouth. Just then, the director walked over. Ha's plan worked. Hana had ditched the commercial. Lee didn't want to work, period. Inho didn't care about her excuses. Just happy with the outcome. Director barked to keep rolling. Inho suggested focusing on the product. June asked how long they'd be stuck here. One scene done, wrap-up coming soon. She said they needed to stick around till the end and file a report. She asked the guy to help set up gear. Carrying drinks, June overheard two people talking about how they'd never seen such a ballsy manager. Still, they were happy it didn't drag into the next scene. This woman's arrival had everything wrapped up. At the wrap, Park Ji-yeon got praised for nailing it, but she still had it out for the manager. She told the director to double-check everything. The schedule was killing her. She spotted Inho and her coworker coming over. She held her breath, clueless what was up. But Inho thanked the actress for sticking it out and apologized for the casting headaches. She explained the cream had two versions, so the client needed a second model. Since these girls had different vibes, they'd mesh well on screen. Inho was confident this ad would totally blow people away. Then she bowed super low to thank everyone again. Ji-yeon was frozen in place, so Ha bent down and gave him a look, letting him know he better not mess up. Later that night, beat to hell from exhaustion, she called Yeojin while waiting for a cab and thanked her for helping out. After hanging up, she heard a familiar voice. Ji-yeon had caught up and handed her a bag of food. He told her to eat, knowing she was starving, and Inho was caught off guard by his gesture. Peeking inside, she noticed it was total kid food stuff and just grabbed a can of beer from the whole mess. She offered to split the cab ride. Both needed to head back to the agency. But he pointed out he'd grabbed the beer for himself. Inho shot that down. He was still on the job until she got home. Once in the cab, she finally relaxed. The alcohol mixed with exhaustion hit hard, and she felt sleepy. She admitted to Ji-yeon that her take on Pat Jun wasn't great. It wasn't her best move, but sometimes you've got to bend the rules to fix things. Ji-yeon added that on set, they called her a certified psycho. But in the end, everyone was happy. Wrapping the shoot mattered more than coddling the main model. After it was all over, Ji-yeon finally got her angle. He admitted he'd thought she was a total jerk at first. He also admitted he'd thought the manager was awesome today. And as he spoke, she was already out cold. She had leaned into his shoulder. Ji-yeon realized how exhausted she was, but it still made him super awkward. In the second department, Director Park messaged Inwo suggesting they grab lunch sometime, but she didn't reply. He remembered how she'd acted that day. It actually kind of amused him. When suddenly, a Jinho's head popped up behind his monitor. She wondered what had the director laughing, then figured it was just stress. He must be mad about something. She thought maybe another round of edits had come in, but Park had no idea why she was latching onto it like there was no time to even laugh. The director told her to get back to work, and she suggested grabbing coffee, still clueless why he'd found it so funny. They were swamped, but Inwo had gone off to check out an actress. Some coworker overheard her muttering and assumed she was just jealous. She explained Inwo had called her herself. Hearing that, Pa called her back and started prying into the details of the conversation. He found out she'd gone shooting with a new guy, then came up with a lame excuse about needing to ask her something about a meeting. The director knew Inwo felt awkward around him, so she went with the new guy instead. That employee was already feeling worn out and asked to take a quick walk to the store to clear her head. Meanwhile, Pak realized he'd overreacted, like he'd been caught up in something, and went back to work. Jinho was heading toward a shelf when she heard the voice of a guy she'd dated a while back. This guy, Kanwan, was with Kim Ju-young and another coworker, and they were heading her way. She panicked. Her hair was a mess, she was in glasses and no makeup, and wearing a ragged hoodie. She immediately ducked behind the shelf, confused why she ran into him now when she used to dress up every day. Ejun heard him laughing and figured it was from her, then decided Inwa was right about office romances. But then she told herself there was nothing wrong with her look. Art directors often look like bums. She boldly walked to the counter, nearly bumping into Penhua, who realized Juan was working late today. The girl still felt awkward, silently pleading he'd pretend they didn't know each other and stay quiet. She paid quickly and headed for the door, but he followed her outside and asked her to wait. Penhua wanted to talk and told her not to act like strangers in public, at least say hello. But Juan reminded him he likes to keep work and personal separate, so she won't greet him without a reason. The guy argued that if she froze up every time they met, people would think it's weird. She didn't care, but said she didn't see him, and he kept begging her not to treat him like a ghost. He also pointed out they'd have to work together. Personal drama was her idea, making problems out of nothing. Ajin wasn't buying it and started arguing, but another coworker joined them. Juan got into it and yelled at her, but she just wanted Penhua to help her carry things home. The girl realized they had an important chat, but Ajin switched topics, saying she was checking out Kana's shampoo. Then she bade them goodbye, saying she had to leave and hurried off. Meanwhile, the taxi pulled up to the building and June shook her mentor awake, saying they'd arrived. The guy caught himself sniffing her perfume like some old pervert. The girl was still out cold. June glanced over, realizing she looked effortlessly stunning right now. Immediately started mentally scolding himself, knowing he should steer clear of any extra touch. Gave her a finger poke to the head. The car lurched sideways, slamming In-ho against the window. She bonked her head. The driver noticed her exhaustion, guessed she'd been up all night, and promised to drive easier. June snapped she wasn't his girlfriend. The driver shot back. Cut the bull, just let her sleep and give her your shoulder. The old man realized they worked together and understood why the pair kept their romance under wraps. June clarified he'd just lent his shoulder, no balls to wake her up. But the driver wasn't buying it and launched into how he'd met his wife the same way. June knew the driver wasn't trying to be an ass, so he dropped it, until the car veered again. Turns out some idiot decided to make a last-second pass, causing a minor jolt. Driver cussed the lunatic for not using his blinker. They pulled up to the building, and June helped his still drowsy boss out. Director Pak spotted them from the window and instantly felt a knot in his stomach. In-ho was thrilled she'd gotten a solid nap. Just leaned her head back and zonked out, now looking totally refreshed. Then Ha let June go rest since it was late, and it was Friday too, but he still had to finish his report. She explained it was his first week on the job, so he could pick it up next week, and added he should feel free to ask if he didn't get something. The creative director walked over, asking why they were still stuck here so late. June recognized the guy from that morning, and In-ho reported they just wrapped up and she was totally wiped out. Peck knew she was more than just babysitting the newbie, and she had no idea why he was bringing it up now. She reassured him June was picking things up fast, then said her goodnights. She had to head to the office to check her emails. The director asked what ride June was taking home, and he straight up said the subway. Then Peck offered Ha a lift in his car, saying they were going the same way, and In-ho got suspicious. She couldn't figure out what had gotten into the director. That wasn't like him at all. June was confused too, thinking the offer was directed at him. After all, he hadn't even mentioned where he lived. She told Peck not to worry. She had to finish writing up the day's shoot report anyway. The director said his goodbyes, but before he left, warned the newbie not to give his boss any trouble. In-ho said goodnight to June for next week too, and he was still clueless about what just happened. He noticed In-ho was tense around Peck too, and suddenly he got it. They were secret lovers. So all the director's talk meant he was trying to keep her away from this girl. Dude wakes up nearly 9, panics he's late for work, then slaps his forehead. Oh right, it's the weekend. Shoves a shower, stares at himself in the mirror like, seriously, how is he this hot? He knows he's got that ego, lives for no one but himself. Calls himself cold, heartless, brews coffee, plops on the couch, finally gets what a workaholic feels like on their day off, turns on the TV. Ads with Park Ju-eun. June's eyes widen. Oh, right. Yinho gave that actress a reality check. This woman just keeps getting hotter. But then he pictures her with Park. Thinking about it, he catches himself. Why the hell is this bugging him? She's just his boss. Even if Yinho's not the type for office flings, there's still that crackle between them. So June figures. Train's long gone. She's got a boyfriend. His plan's dead. Can't wrap his head around why he's even thinking this. They've got zero in common. He shakes it off. Director told him to keep his nose out of his boss's business. Now June thinks that guy's a total jerk. Maybe Pa was just spooked because June's a looker. But hey, who cares? Especially since Ha's a total nightmare. Whole morning he's telling himself he couldn't care less. But damn it, he still can't stop thinking about it. Finally, June snaps. Needs some fresh air. It's the weekend. No sense rotting at home all day. Yejin and Yinho hit the gym. Hwan spills the beans on how she randomly bumped into Penghua. It got under her skin that he wanted her to greet people in public and that he hated when others criticized him. He'd always been that way. Other people's opinions meant more to him than Eojin's. Ha told her friend to keep it down, but Eojin wasn't backing off. After all, he'd landed the job she'd actually suggested to him. He'd been dead set against it back then, and now it was even more annoying that someone snapped a pic of him in a cafe. Hwan figured he'd moved on, which was why he wanted her to keep quiet about it. Ha tried to smooth things over. Inho knew Hwan was ready to rip into him, but to her, he'd just asked them to keep each other's secrets. Eojin couldn't let it go. Peiwa hadn't even thought about her feelings. Ha just didn't get why he should care. Dejected, Hwan admitted to her friend that he used to call her to apologize when things got like this. She was already thinking about calling him herself. And Inho realized her friend was more shaken than usual. If this guy was going around like this, he'd really moved on from Eojin. Hell, they used to be glued at the hip. Inho had to tag along on their dates to cover up their office fling. And it was the weirdest damn thing. Eojin admitted she'd be happy to forget about him too, if she didn't keep bumping into him. Ha realized that breaking up their office romance only made things worse, and they'd have to keep running into each other until someone got the boot. But on the flip side, even when they were sneaking around, it was nice leaving work together and just hanging out. Inho caught herself thinking about June lately. When she thought about work, it wasn't Peck's face she saw. It was that irritating new guy's. The girl suddenly got hot and lightheaded, but she figured it was just from the run. She asked Hwang how Peck was doing, and Hwang admitted he was working nonstop and driving them all nuts. But Ha wanted to know if he'd been acting weird, and Yojin now thought both of them were odd for not just talking to each other. Inho realized Peck had asked about her. He'd actually asked yesterday where she'd been off to for so long. Suddenly, Yojin wondered if there was something going on between the two, but quickly told herself that was impossible. Meanwhile, June ran into some friends and dropped the bomb that his boss already had a boyfriend. They were in shock, thinking their buddy had finally gone full-on serious about chasing his boss. The guy denied it, saying it was his friend's idea and he'd told him to stop talking nonsense. The friends started plotting ways to get Inho alone and grilled him about what the boyfriend was like, convinced June had a chance. He switched the topic and asked his friend why he was at the presentation, since he didn't want to be seen there. Turns out, a new brand had launched, and the head designer was a total looker. But then he spotted a guy standing next to her and assumed it was her boyfriend. Until June recognized him. That guy? Creative director Peck. June was blown away. His friend caught him staring and guessed he knew the guy, but June denied it. June told himself it wasn't his problem and that girl might just be Peek's friend. But she's a foreign designer, and it's unclear where her friends are from here. Though the two might have met through work. They're way too close. If Park is involved with Inho, he should keep his distance from the rest. June's buddy noticed there were celebrities here. He'd heard the company handled the event. The camera person's a total pro. New brand. They must have snagged the spot from day one. Meanwhile, June couldn't calm down. He didn't want to believe it, but he thought for sure those two were an item. In his head, Inho was texting Park nonstop with no replies. She had no clue where he was vanishing to. He pictured her calling Park only for him to snap, "I'm swamped today. Don't call me again." Turns out Inho's spending her weekends alone, and it hit June hard. He was furious at the director for ditching his boss. Now his glare was burning a hole in Park's back. Suddenly, the designer spotted a feather particle on him and swiftly brushed it off. The director thanked her, then praised the positive reviews. She humbly admitted it wasn't all her doing. She reminded him of his idea, that the clothes would leave a lasting scent. Now everyone's talking about that exact thing. Park thanked them for trusting their agency and expressed hope for future collaboration. Meanwhile, Yeojin figured In-ho was work-obsessed, planned to head straight for overtime after the gym. Her mom walked in, spotted the mess, and demanded it be cleaned. "Only pigs live like this," she added. The girl promised to clean up later since she was wiped out from training and wanted some rest. Out of the blue, Mom asked why the daughter wasn't planning to meet Ponghwa, like they'd grown apart. It drove Jin nuts. She wanted to scream they weren't together anymore, but that'd just make Mom dig deeper. So she just said he was out of town on a work trip all weekend and they couldn't meet up. Mom felt bad for the guy and begged her to invite him for dinner, but Jin said Ponghwa was too shy for that. She'd had enough and kicked Mom out, then looked around and decided to do a quick tidy up. A bunch of stuff in the room was gifts from Ponghwa, and Jin, seething with rage, started shoving them into a trash bag. She was set on getting rid of it, still fuming he'd had the nerve to snap back at her. Then she spotted a photo of them looking happy together and hurled it into the bag without a second thought. Jin remembered how he'd said he liked her but didn't know how to act around her and took the blame. He begged her not to leave, but then caved and agreed to break things off on her terms. He asked her to play it cool at work and keep pretending they were just friends to avoid gossip. Meanwhile, In-ho, buried in work, wondered if she should have stayed with Jin. She was clearly hurting. But Jin was still going on and on about Ponghwa. Plus, she had to find a new place to live and get her stuff together. Ha also told her mom not to send money, knowing she was in a shaky situation. So Dune suddenly messaged her, so she followed Juna, but he immediately unsubbed, saying he accidentally sent it to the wrong person. The girl found it weird. She thought about calling him, but realized he'd just bother her again. Meanwhile, Yuna caught herself thinking how hot he was again, then went back to work and prepped the meeting docs. After the gym, Yeojin reminded her friend they were both stuck at the same ad agency, drowning in work piles. Hwan noticed Yoonho was way too work-obsessed, and that's why she had zero social life. Ha understood that, but if she didn't push hard, she couldn't hold her standards. Everyone was waiting for her to slip up. She'd been through the whole 9 yards, lost projects, got axed from companies, even had her ass handed to her. And she wasn't about to let anything slip now. Yoonho remembered her parents arguing about how her dad had quit a solid job, and her mom had been on his case about it. She said he wasn't some noble prick and needed to man up and take care of his wife and kids. Money wasn't gonna last forever. Now Yoonho wondered why she'd once loved her job so much when June called out of the blue. She instantly asked why he was calling on a weekend, and he apologized again for those messages. He told her not to stress over it, then asked what her boss was up to. He was just curious, but Yoonho reminded him it was bad form to call a boss on the weekend. Then Ha shot him a look, not buying that he was just checking in. She admitted she was alone, and June suggested they hang out. That proposal came as a shock to her. But the guy explained that pleasing the boss is part of the job. Yoonho said entertaining her was over the top, but agreed to let him treat her to dinner after work sometime. The girl tried to wrap up the conversation, but June asked her to pick a date, and she shot back that it wouldn't be before he finished his report. After that, Ha hung up, but found the whole thing kind of funny. She hadn't expected that from a newbie. He was secretly pumped too. Hadn't thought Yoonho would even pick up. Nervous, he just blurted out the first thing that came to mind. He didn't know what hit him. But hey, it was cool that she offered to let him treat her to dinner. It lightened his mood, and suddenly his boss didn't seem so bad after all. Monday morning, young Hume showed up at work and caught June in a total mess. So he asked how June's weekend went. June just muttered something about not lying on the desk because the boss would hate it. June listened, then wondered if office workers actually hated getting messages on their days off. He also wanted to know what it meant if you called an employee on their day off and asked them out for dinner. Young Hume thought for a second, then guessed it might be a way to get closer. Then June wondered if he should tell an office worker some sad truth he'd stumbled upon by accident. He figured people had a right to know, but Lee admitted he didn't care about coworkers' business. June decided not to stress about it, and Young Yum told him to quit slacking and get back to work. He reminded the new guy he needed to get a report ready and put together a presentation on the key points. So said he'd already taken care of it. Admitted he found it interesting and showed it to his coworker. The other guy was surprised, and June admitted he could have done more. It wasn't hard to crunch the company analysis data. In-ho walked in and noticed her desk had been moved, and Jung-yum reported he'd packed up her stuff himself. He also mentioned he's reviewing the report June did, which clearly caught the manager off guard. He started hoping she'd give him some credit right then, but In-ho grabbed the file, saying she'd check it when she had time. Ha Jung-yum asked for a meeting with the production team and Park's group, and she liked the new setup. Her view was perfect now. She caught June looking confused and called him over, and he hoped again she'd give him a shout out. But she just told him to dig into the budget for the last project and not slack off since he was done with the report. She wondered if he could handle spreadsheets, hinting he could watch how Lee works the numbers. She warned that if even one number didn't match, there'd be hell to pay. And to keep his eyes peeled. He apologized and asked about the report. He thought it was urgent, so he gave it his all. Inho repeated she'd look at it later and didn't get why he went through the trouble. Why not just copy it from the internet? June felt like crap. He poured his heart into it, but she wouldn't even glance at it. Probably because she's avoiding dinner with him. He noticed she looked down today and guessed all her meetings were just her brooding over something. He wasn't sure if he should come clean about what he saw, and Inho had no idea why he kept staring at her. After a while, June noticed Hei was getting ready to head out and asked to tag along. She explained she was going to a team lead meeting. He spent the whole day literally on her tail, and Inho was baffled. Why was he hounding her when she was already swamped? Trying to make him back off, she checked his report and was shocked to see he'd done everything properly. Director Pak popped in, reminding them about the meeting and asked Hei to review the materials. She instantly shoved June's report back into her drawer and dove into the paperwork Pak brought. She admitted to her coworker that she'd let the newbie practice on the materials, and he'd done a solid job. Inho hadn't even finished reviewing his work yet, but out of nowhere, she blurted out that he seemed kinda cute. Pak raised an eyebrow. Clearly, she'd forgotten how she used to chase her superiors like a lost puppy to get acknowledged. Suddenly, she spotted June peeking at them through the meeting room door, practically nose to glass. Inho demanded an explanation, and he confessed he couldn't step into the meeting room. But he wanted to learn everything. She didn't dig his pushiness and shoot him away, feeling awkward under Pak's watchful eye. As he walked off, June caught Pak's knowing smirk, like a silent warning he'd messed up big time. He realized Pak was still giving him the cold shoulder, and things were spiraling way beyond his control. He suddenly craved seeing his grandfather, who, ironically, was also curious how his grandson was doing right then. The chairman was told in the morning that Du Inwa was running late because of some urgent issues. The old man noticed everyone suddenly started whispering and didn't get why his company visit felt so weird. An employee dropped a hint that if he wanted details about his grandson's business, he could ask for a full report. But the grandfather was more curious why Director Ha had banned filming inside the company. Still, he didn't change his mind. Thought it'd do the kid good to get some reprimands and hustle on his own. The employee realized the chairman was worried about how he was adjusting. After all, he'd tried to set him up before. The old man didn't know what to do with him, so he kept pushing marriage. But every date the kid had ended up a bust. The guy made up all sorts of dumb stories about himself to keep girls away. He even joked that he was being forced into marriage and the girl would have to feed him and put up with him. The old man figured even if the kid wanted to embarrass him, there had to be limits. This was causing way too much fuss. June's been doing his own thing till the end, and the employee noticed how much he takes after the chairman. The employee also noted how the boss was happy the guy's gotten way more energetic as he's gotten older. The old man remembered years back when he sat with the sick kid, who was shaking from the cold and calling for his mom and dad. The kid was sick. The old man knew he was hurting, but all the care he gave was checking his forehead. Then he headed out, and the boy asked when he'd get better and apologized for being a bother. The chairman found it strange that his grandson had been so quiet and only spoke up now, begging Grandpa not to hate him so much. Now the old man realized he'd been crushing the kid instead of filling the parental gap, telling him not to cry. Then he asked a staff member about Director Inho, but just then Du Inhwa walked in. Chairman checked in on her workload, and she assured him nothing mattered more than his visit, suggesting they head to the planning department right away. He agreed to go straight there, knowing everyone was buzzing about his arrival, but asked she keep it quiet. Inho wrapped up her report, and Park was shocked. She never stops until she gets precise results. She explained management was just covering their bases since the advertiser planned to slash the marketing budget. The director reminded them their whole job was to spend money and multiply the returns. He didn't get why pay an agency if it's just copying the same faces over and over. Park pointed out she was acting just like him when it came to losses and profits. He noticed her frustration but chalked it up to long hours together and both being total stubborn heads. Inho remembered how they downed 5 soju bottles arguing over budgets. No wonder nothing ever worked out. The director agreed they never saw eye to eye on priorities. This just stressed Ha out more, but he just smiled. He reminded her she once said the same thing, how in every relationship she always looks for the upside. Inho remembered how after wrapping a project, the team always gathered for dinner to celebrate. Then she stepped outside because her head was spinning, and Peck noticed and decided to follow. He caught up to her, saw she was shivering in the snow, and realized she'd had way too much to drink. The girl swore she was fine, but asked him to grab some hangover meds, then said she was heading back. The restaurant had the deputy manager, and for regular staff, this meeting meant a lot. Peck got it, but asked her to wait a bit and rushed to the pharmacy to get the meds. Waiting, In-ho dozed off. When he woke her, he handed her the bottle and asked again if she was okay. She admitted she was exhausted, but said good results were everything to her. That was her drive. She didn't want to waste her time on something pointless, so love didn't fit with her priorities. She wanted to be selfish and asked Peck to walk away. She just needed to hear a rejection. In-ho knew he couldn't expect the same feelings and apologized for causing him trouble. She admitted she liked Peck. He noticed they'd gotten too close lately. He knew he should have set boundaries and apologized for leading her on. Then he was about to leave, explaining their long absence would raise questions. She remembered and was still grateful to the director, but past stuff wasn't for the workplace. That's her personality. No second-guessing once she makes up her mind. Back then, she was totally green, acting like a kid, but she'll keep her mouth shut even if he tells everyone about it. But she knew that wouldn't have happened, and she got even more certain after watching the staff's mood. Peck's calm helped her feel relief, and suddenly he admitted he was furious back then. That night she was straight up selfish, but a random message distracted him from the conversation. The director apologized to his coworker and showed a chat message. The art director's dating someone in the department. In the group chat, Yujin messaged someone, saying she gets it, she's okay now, and told that stranger to stop contacting her. A few minutes earlier, in the second department, the staff were discussing workflow, but their talk got cut off by Yujin's loud keyboard taps, like she was trying to finish a year's work in one day. Rumors were flying the client demanded revisions, and everyone knew it was rough on Juan. But today, she was off her damn rocker. One coworker guessed it was something else, and Yujin's still straight up mad at Pyonghwa. Looking at their history, she realizes he barely got by too. But for some reason, only she's stuck suffering. The guy was too lazy to wait in line at a restaurant, and on dates, he always looked dead tired. His eyes only lit up during boring art house films, and even in a cafe, he'd just stare at his laptop, working. Now she typed a long message in the chat, cursed her ex, and sent it like a damn hex. After the text went live, she felt her stress lift, thinking she should have said this ages ago. One of her coworkers back there saw this messy text on her phone and figured Eojin mixed up the chat. Hwang realized she'd made a huge mistake and couldn't believe it wasn't a dream, going into total denial. The coworker told her to stop pretending she was clueless and delete it fast, and she got so flustered she nearly yanked out her own hair. June brought the boss a snack but noticed it was way too quiet and started eavesdropping by the door. The guy was about to lose it from the anxiety, since he couldn't make out a word they were saying. And then, out of nowhere, he caught someone whispering his name. June jumped straight up, and it turned out it was Yoonho checking up on him, asking what he was doing there. The guy blurted out that the boss was in a meeting and he was babysitting her, plus learning the ropes as a rookie. Lee told him to stop messing around and go do the actual work that's supposed to be a new employee's job. June started teasing that Yoonho missed him and was lonely without him, and Yoonho just groaned and clutched his head. Director Pact overheard their chat, popped out, and asked why Yoon was still hanging around. June said he'd just gotten back, hoping the meeting was over, and he brought the boss a drink. He tried to walk in, but the director blocked his path, telling him to come back later because Yeho was writing a report. The director was about to leave because he had business, and June sarcastically gave him a thumbs up for his work. Director Pact grabbed his elbow, worried he'd been swamped all weekend but still pulled off that meeting. He offered him some sweet drinks, figuring the guy was wiped out after that intense work. Pac refused and started to leave again, and June said their boss worked her tail off. Young Woong caught the tension but told his colleague to get back to the grind. In the planning department, Kim Joo-in couldn't believe In-ho and Pak were paired up for a project. Their team was supposed to handle the presentation too, but somehow the boss picked Ha In-ho's crew. The staff wondered what she thought of them and couldn't get over her getting promoted so young. Joan remembered how Ha had smiled at him days ago, then insulted him again. It was pissing him off. He told the others not to stress over it. He was sure she'd be out the door soon. Kim was more curious what had happened to those two when a tough project dropped. After all, their team was just a fat guy and a kid. A lot of advertisers gripe about feeling awkward with In-ho. And in their line of work, reputation's everything. He dropped hints about what happens if her presentation bombs, even with Pak on board. After his speech, Kim told everyone to get back to their desks. Lunch was over. Young Woong and June heard his last words, and so was now seething, planning revenge for the kid. Lee told his coworker to ignore it and focus on work, but he wasn't about to let it slide. He didn't like that June had insulted the boss, and Youngwoo told him to remember his first day. Lee didn't want their boss humiliated again and told June not to make the same mistake. He explained you can't just say whatever you want here, and the guy remembered In-ho's first piece of advice. Speak politely. At that moment, Jin spotted the chairman but had no clue why he'd shown up. Eun-ho led a tour, showing off the planning department, and the workers started scattering in all directions. She added that lunch had just ended, so not everyone was back yet, and suggested calling the team leads. The chairman declined. He just wanted to take a look without interrupting anyone's work. And that's when Khan's assistant walked back in with a snack. Kim Ji-yeon approached the head, gave a low bow, and introduced himself fully. June almost blurted out, "Grandpa," but caught himself at the first syllable, realizing he'd have to explain everything to his coworkers. He quickly corrected himself. "I've got a ton on my plate and can't even decide where to start." Then he politely greeted the chairman, confused why he'd shown up unannounced and was scaring everyone. The old man noticed the newbie from Group 2 had a voice that could carry, and asked how long he'd been working there. At the same time, In-ho was walking toward the office and spotted the chairman chatting with the new guy from afar. At first, she thought the guy was in trouble. She rushed over and told June to stand behind her. As she pulled him back by the hand, the guy felt something odd the moment her skin touched his. In-ho let go immediately, then greeted the chairman and introduced herself by name and position. The old man admitted that Do had raved about her, and even felt curious. He'd heard that Ha was doing an excellent job. He admitted he doesn't see the staff much, so he couldn't have come earlier. Wished her luck. The girl thanked him, and Kim June, hiding behind the old guy, started sucking up. Big time, said how much he respects him. Chairman wasn't biting. Turned on his heel and left. In-hwa shot Kim a get-back-to-work glare. June knew he was in hot water, but stayed cool. Do didn't miss a beat, repeated the back-to-your-desk line. Then she gave In-hwa props. Handled it like a pro, stayed polite, and looked sharp. Do caught Ha getting flustered when the chairman hit company talk. Thanked her for keeping it together. Knew she wasn't in the big leagues yet for boardroom chat. In-hwa saw she had the chairman's attention. Ha gave an update. New guy's nailing it. For now. Still needs a watchful eye. After a beat, In-hwa dropped a bomb. Assigned the big presentation to June. Ha's eyes about popped. Didn't see how to throw a rookie into the deep end with no experience. Said start by letting the new blood take the lead. In-hwa would back him up. She'd prepped hard. Who's up there doesn't matter. Get that contract signed and the whole team wins. In-hwa pushed for giving the rookie a shot. Mentoring's part of the job. But if the rookie screws up and we blow the deal, the boss gets heat too. In-hwa thanked, promised to keep it positive. Do held her back. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Ha! Who reminded everyone of Do back when she was just starting out, declared that work is her top priority. Then she headed back to the office, knowing In-hwa still had a ton to do and not wanting to hold her up. Do realized Ha commuted from out of town, so the chairman offered her a company apartment on the spot. She was taken aback. This kind of favor usually only comes from the board of directors. On her way back, In-hwa kept thinking it was too good to be true. She couldn't believe it had actually happened. Now, because of this favor, she's basically being forced to be the stepping stool for the prince's big debut. But if she moves into that apartment, her only expense would be the utilities. She also wondered what the chairman and June had going on. Different last names, after all. But she knew it wasn't her place to ask. 1 second, she was remembering everything that had happened over the past week. But then just decided to play along and do as she was told. June ran into his grandpa in the parking lot, confused why he was being so secretive now after showing up out of the blue. The chairman's surprise visit had everyone on edge, and the guy ended up standing there shaking in front of his boss. The old man explained he just wanted to check in and see how June was doing at work. June was lost, reminding his grandpa that even parents don't drop by their kids' school unannounced. The old man got mad, slapped the back of June's head, then asked if he liked his boss. He admitted she was decent enough since she's nitpicky and works hard. Definitely someone to take notes from. Grandpa knew switching environments wasn't easy for the guy and asked if he needed anything. June saw his chance and asked for his car keys back. Subway rides were killing him. The chairman wasn't about to cave and just told him to move closer, even offering to set up a bedroom at the office. Then Grandpa admitted he'd sent some cash for pocket change but warned him not to blow it all. The guy was thrilled, until the chairman dropped a bomb. He'd have to pay it back after his paycheck. It was like a knife to Zune's gut. The old man let him leave and he bolted. The driver noticed Zune was adjusting quicker than they'd expected. Grandpa confessed that's exactly why he was worried. Then he wondered if Inho's boss was maybe too perfect. She was so put together, she didn't even fumble. Kim didn't get why the boss was stressing, but he said it was a problem. What if they fell for each other? The old man was shocked Zun wasn't coming up with excuses to skip work, like he'd completely lost his mind. He feared the kid might forget his responsibilities and just follow Inho around like a lost puppy. Meanwhile, in the second apartment, Yojin was still ranting at herself, thinking about quitting, but knew it wouldn't fix anything. She'd even considered switching jobs and careers. Hell, she could use a break. But how to explain it to her mom? The staff was worried sick and whispering about what had gotten into her. Yojin caught snippets and started grumbling, then shouted she was fine, no big deal. The coworker told her not to worry, figuring not everyone had read it yet, then offered to grab some sandwiches. Suddenly, Yojin got a message from Ponghwa asking her to step outside for a minute. She left her colleagues instantly. They asked where she was headed. She snapped, "I'm going to the roof." And their minds immediately went dark. They begged her to stay and talk it through. "You've got your whole life ahead. Stuff happens, but don't lose it." They insisted love wasn't a sin, though they didn't want to know about it themselves. Yojin finally exploded. "You've got this all wrong. I just needed some air." She arrived at the rooftop meeting. Ponghwa was waiting, face dead serious. She dragged her feet up the stairs, even hesitated by the door. Didn't want to rush in. She rehearsed in her head what he'd probably say next. She knew it'd be about the group chat message. Ponghwa thought she was trying to wreck his life. He wouldn't buy it was a mistake. Then he'd demand she quit. Couldn't work with her. But then she remembered. Ponghwa wasn't a hothead. This would go the exact opposite way. He'd be cold, clipped. No time for drama. Then file a lawsuit for damaging his reputation. He'd warn her up front, no surprises. "Don't misread me," he'd say. Witnesses showed up, so no point in arguing. He'd just walk out. No matter how you slice it, Ejun's the villain here, and no matter how Paewa reacts, she's the one who messed up. So first, she needs to throw herself at his feet and apologize. No snappy comebacks, or it'll just make things worse. Steeling herself, she opened the door, then immediately apologized for being late when she saw him. Paewa tried to say something, but she cut him off, admitting straight up that she'd been wrong. She had nothing else to say. She swore it was accidental. She just hates hashing things out, and she'd been seething about their last argument. Work had been a nightmare that morning. Her head was about to explode, and then she saw his message and completely lost her damn mind. He thought she was blaming him, but she snapped back, saying she'd deleted it on the spot and no one had seen it. But Paewa shot back that everyone had already read it, and even if not all of them, it was buzzing around the office now. Ajin knew he'd stood there calmly while she'd screwed up and slammed him in the back of the head. She knew she should have been ashamed, but since his name wasn't mentioned, it'd blow over soon. It could have been just a normal slip-up with a chat, but Paewa showed her the comments people had posted about it. Ajin dropped to her knees, begging for forgiveness, even promising to broadcast an apology over the office intercom. She figured it'd be better if she spun it at every event, that the message had nothing to do with Paewa. He told her to stop apologizing. He hadn't even read it yet, and she didn't need to feel awkward meeting him. He knew there was no point getting mad. Everyone's got their own stuff to deal with, so the chatter would die down eventually. Pinhwa's just worried Yojin's gonna stress herself out over this and end up with trouble at work. For Hwan, it was so unexpected she didn't even know how to react. Especially since Pinhwa had already told her to keep personal stuff out of it. The guy thought she'd be super stressed about them dating, but now there was no reason to explain anything. But either way, if someone asked him, he wasn't saying a word, and he told Yojin to do the same. He offered to grab a cup of coffee together, but she said no, so Pinhwa figured he'd just head out. Before leaving, he told his coworker not to stress over it and act like nothing happened. He walked out, and Yojin found herself thinking back to when he apologized for being late because he had too much work. She remembered that moment when they decided to keep things casual, but she'd never really gotten used to it. She also noticed how that guy always cleaned up after work. Then they'd go see a movie together. At the time, Hwan kept telling herself she went with him to the movies because Yinho couldn't go due to work. And she had 2 tickets. Pinhwa didn't argue back then, even admitting he liked that movie. But only because they were together. Now, she couldn't believe that after all this, she was the only one left looking foolish while that guy just got more confident. Later, she met up with Director Pak, assuring him everything was okay. But he said they still needed to report it to HR. Had to talk to the other party's manager. But the main thing was to avoid any awkwardness from backstabbing accusations. She assured them that Manager Kan Pinhwa had a calm conversation with her, and she'd try not to cause any more trouble. She knew Park hated dealing with this kind of stuff and realized she'd acted unprofessional. The director reminded her she had a ton of responsibilities and hoped her desk wouldn't suddenly go empty. Then he told her to play it cool, like nothing happened, and admitted he didn't really care about employees' personal lives either. But that's only when someone blows it out of proportion for the whole company. Eojin promised to smooth things over. After she left, Park remembered Inho's words. She only cared about results, and that was her greed. She wasn't about to waste time on something pointless. Love just didn't fit with her priorities. A few days later, Pinhua finished cross-checking the production schedule and was about to send it to the client for approval. Then he called to wrap up the deal by the end of the week. He worked so hard that employees barely recognized him sometimes. He knew a few days had passed, but nothing had changed. Still, he was worried about Eojin. He didn't want to dump all that on her. Just planned to give her a little comfort, even though he could have just asked if she was okay. But in the end, he decided not to bring up personal stuff. He hated getting all worked up about it. Meanwhile, Eojin dropped by Inho's place, complaining about the new rumors, how she got dumped or something. Had told her to ignore the gossip, because if Hwan paid attention, it'd only get worse. Eojin admitted Park told her to act normal so the office rumors wouldn't spread further. Inho understood and told her again not to get stuck on it, but still noticed her sad face. Ha asked what Hwan feels about Pinhua now, but she didn't want to answer and suggested continuing to pack. Inho asked to wrap up some things, but she thought they called her just to hand out tasks. Yejin reminded them they don't have to pack themselves. There are services. To calm her down, Ha promised to treat her to dinner. Hwan even felt a bit jealous of her friend because she also wanted to move out from her parents, and the office is super close. Inho wanted to finish everything quickly before the boss changed her mind, then suddenly hesitated. After all, they lowered the rope, but she can't tell how strong it is and asked how Yejin would act in her place. Hwan explained the chances of different outcomes are equal, but it's worth trying to grab it. If Inho notices it's about to break, she should drop it immediately. She remembered asking Juna to discuss his report. The girl wrote she didn't have time for work, but they could meet, and he got excited they'd have lunch together. She ordered food home now, and Yejun thought everything looked delicious. Plus, she was happy to be treated. She got curious why Inho brought up the rope, guessing it had to do with the office. Ha explained everyone at the office fantasizes about something like this, but Hwan begged her not to mention the company. Then Yejin admitted she went to a fortune teller who said everything at work would be fine. Inho was surprised she went to a fortune teller, and Hwan reminded them they all went together. Ha and the fortune teller made predictions. First, the woman analyzed Inho's personality, saying she stays calm even when thinking about losses. She gets super stressed in social situations, and there's a huge gap between how people see her and what she's really like. Ha had told her friend it was a total waste of money, since fortune tellers just say obvious stuff. But during the session, she nodded along to every word the witch said, clueless how she knew everything, then asked something specific. Yinho wasn't into love stuff. She wanted to know how much money she'd make since she wanted to help her younger brother. She also confessed she lives in a crummy apartment and asked if she should move or save up for a deposit. The fortune teller suddenly dropped that she'd have a life-changing encounter, either someone new or someone from her past. It was a big deal, and the witch told her not to blow this chance. This person's a good one. Now, Yinho admits she doesn't remember anything, probably because it was a total waste of time. Eojin looked at her friend, who looked like a zombie, and just shoved a drumstick in her mouth. Hwan was just worried her coworker had gotten too skinny, so she kept pushing her to eat more. The office was a madhouse. Everyone was busy as heck, and Jiwon got asked to make some document copies. The guy felt super tired and sleep-deprived because he'd been wrecked getting on the subway the night before. Then a friend showed up, just walked in since he knew the passcode, and started spilling the news. He told the followers about Jiwon and asked him to share an office romance, hoping there was some progress. So said that girl already has a boyfriend, then asked his friend to buy him sushi, or at least a steak. The streamer started broadcasting, commenting that a love triangle is forming and this is going to be a spicy story. Zoon didn't get what relationships they were talking about, since he had zero feelings for his boss. Then it hit him. She's dating Pak, and that stung again, but he shook the thought off fast. At work, Yinho didn't show any signs, and the office isn't for romance, since that's where people come to work. No one wants someone's emotional outbursts derailing the whole company's work. Plus, in the long run, it wasn't good for him either. He got so lost in thought that his boss noticed. She even thought he'd dozed off listening to music, so to snap the newbie out of it, she yanked his earbud. Zoon blinked awake, and Yinho told him no using it at the office, or she wouldn't react fast enough. He swore his hearing was sharp, but she didn't like that he started arguing with her. So Jun promised to avoid them, knowing he needed top marks. Yinho thought he was just on a 3-month trial period and didn't see it as a lifeline. She got so distracted staring at him, thinking of the chairman, while he thought he had something on his face. Had just realized it was time to test how strong this rope was, since before she'd only been guessing. Her future was on the line, so she suddenly told Jun, "You seem to get way too much love." She even thought he was someone's heir, but he said people always tell him that. It's no surprise. She asked about his plans after work, reminding him he'd asked for dinner with her before. They ended up at a small cafe, but June stared at the menu for ages. The prices were way too high. She couldn't take it anymore and started yelling at him to decide already. He explained he couldn't focus. The place felt super noisy, but Ha snapped that it was a popular spot for coworkers to hang out. June still wasn't hurrying, even though he really wanted pork belly, especially since Ha had told him to pick whatever he wanted. Ha reminded him that if someone offers to treat you, it's rude to ask for beef. June felt awkward, then promised he'd treat his boss to beef once he got his paycheck. She got tired of waiting and ordered herself a frozen pork belly, pork shoulder, and a baked omelet. Then she asked what June preferred for drinks, hinting they'd be having alcohol. He was confused. How could a guy and girl drink alcohol that late? June just realized there could be a misunderstanding if Ha's boyfriend saw them. They were close to the office. They might get into a pointless fight over it, so he started brainstorming ways to say no to the alcohol. She thought he just couldn't hold his liquor, then reminded him he'd done whiskey commercials before starting the job. She also explained their sales job sometimes needs them to drink with clients. But knowing it was too much for June, Inwo promised to cover for him. Plus, the vibe lately just didn't feel right for alcohol. She decided to get him a soda, either cola or Sprite, giggling that there was no chocolate milk here, but then the guy suddenly said he could drink it. She didn't argue, but since beer was giving her a bloated stomach, she decided to order soju instead. They were seated at a table where you could cook the meat yourself, but Ji-yoon asked the girl to let him take care of it. The guy noticed all the fat dripping off. It was super important, and if his grandfather saw it, he'd lose his mind. He served a piece to the boss, who confessed she envied how close June was with his grandfather. She asked who he was, and the guy explained he was probably at home watching his favorite show right now. Inho noticed they were alone for the first time and admitted she'd been indifferent toward working with the new employee. She noticed she'd been nitpicking, and June realized his boss was actually pretty nice. She asked where he lived, remembering how he'd mentioned the Hanam district when he first snatched her taxi. He remembered his grandfather's advice not to mention his district and told Inho it was where his friend lived. Ha noticed his nice watches, which looked like a Rolex, though they cost a few $1,000s. June explained he'd gotten them from a toy crane machine and was just as shocked to pull off something so nice. Inho noticed his shirt looked super expensive, and the guy explained he took good care of it. For his physique, he said he worked out in the park on free equipment, and he answered the rest the same way. Inho was waiting for him to get drunk, but he held up surprisingly well, even after she'd already had a lot. Gyun suddenly asks why the boss is so interested in you, since she has a boyfriend and almost choked on her food. So notices her confusion and quickly apologizes, figuring she's keeping her relationship private. The waitress walks over, notices their meat's overdone, and offers to swap the grill. Gyun declines, insists it's delicious, while Yoonho realizes something's off in her grilling. She starts grilling Gyun, who explains she suggested drinking and kept raving about how handsome he is. She was so into him, glancing at her watch, remembering their first meeting and smiling nonstop. He's flattered but awkward. Yoonho doesn't get why it's weird to drink with the boss. She's just curious what kind of guy he is, where he lives, how much he can share. But he's holding back. Ha thinks it's some kind of game. Gyun admits he wanted her to respect his skills, not just hang out. Yoonho realizes she's coming on too strong and decides to clarify the situation. Bosses being interested in subordinates is natural. They work together. Don't take it personally. Yoonho and Yoongama ask about personal stuff because the team needs to know each other. Drinking with coworkers is fine, even one-on-one. It's social, nothing weird. But more importantly, Yoonho wants to know where Gyun got that nonsense about her having a boyfriend. She clarifies it's not true and tells So to stop spreading those rumors. June realized she was seeing that guy, and it meant a lot to him since Ha invited him for drinks. It all happened so fast, and she was going on and on, calling him a looker, saying his outfit was on point. He brought up again how she remembered their first meeting and couldn't stop smiling. Right then, he leaned in real close like he was about to kiss her, and Inho figured he was already wasted. June backed off, and the girl realized with a sinking feeling that the rope had crumbled to dust. Then they headed outside. Ha told him to snap out of it and even bought him some ice water. Sue was surprised. She admitted she picked it up from a senior coworker who once bought her a hangover remedy. June noticed again how she was being so nice and thanked her, then remembered all her compliments again. The girl told him to cut it out. She never said he was cute, and he wasn't fooling anyone with that drunk act. They sat in silence for a bit, then Inho pressed him again to admit his bluff. She wondered how he'd look her in the eye tomorrow after that mess, even if she knew she sounded like an old lady now. Out of nowhere, June asked what she was like when she first started, thinking she'd always been perfect. The girl admitted she used to be a total klutz too. Everyone struggles, and no one hits it out of the park on day one. Just keep your head up, ask questions, use your brain, and she always believed in having a guaranteed tomorrow. She wanted a name tag, her own desk and office. It was important to earn her spot and have a bank account with real money. June figured her parents were proud of her, and she admitted she bought them gifts with her very first paycheck. Ha got curious about how Gina's parents took it, and he explained it was his grandfather's lifelong dream. Inho didn't get how someone could live off another's dream. Everyone should have their own, right? Though deep down, she felt the same way. He said he just wanted to be a good grandson. His grandpa had gone through so much because of him. So was his favorite grandkid, and now he's saving up to take the old man on a cruise. She realized he'd been giving a lot of attention to his family lately. He insisted it was all for Ha, though. Inho thought he was acting weird, but brushed it off as the booze and the cold. Later, June walked his equally tipsy boss home, and her phone kept blowing up the whole way. She swayed a bit and admitted, "At first you seemed cold, but I see now you're not." He said she just hadn't noticed yet. He's actually nicer than he looks. But that wasn't what was on his mind now. He was curious how Inho got so drunk so fast. She'd been slower to start drinking than he was. He remembered how they hit the second round and Ha mixed beer with soju. The girl kept wanting more. At the door, he hesitated. It was her place, but he stepped inside anyway. The place felt gloomy. He sat his boss by the wall, told her he shouldn't stay, and urged her to grab a blanket and get some sleep. She suddenly asked, "Why are you leaving? I'm your boss." "I didn't say you could go home." In her day, no one dared move a muscle without the boss's permission, but June said things are a bit different now. Inwa agreed and asked him to stay the night. Nighttime rates are higher and taxis are super pricey. The guy was stunned, and Ha grabbed him by the shoulders, telling him not to let the boss's words get to him. He looked around, realized there was nowhere to lie down, and Inwa said he could curl up wherever he wanted. She was so exhausted and wasted she could have passed out on the hallway floor. She admitted it sucked coming home every day to an empty house that felt like a tomb. The next second, Inwa snored, and June was flustered, not sure what the right move was. But he wanted to crash too. Morning came, and when Ha woke up, she didn't immediately realize where she was. Then she looked around and figured out she was home. She realized she'd gotten wasted and started piecing things together. How she'd ended up drinking and noshing meat with this guy. Then they chit-chatted at the store, she grabbed more beer, and later remembered June catching a cab. Inwa didn't remember everything, but hoped she hadn't missed anything big, knowing she might have acted like a total idiot. Even so, it didn't matter to her. She had nothing to lose. Still, she was glad she'd somehow made it home. First, she washed her face and noticed her makeup had smeared. She figured she'd been crying. Suddenly, she saw something move in her bathroom. She jumped, then saw June sleeping there. At that moment, he looked like a cherub. Inwa couldn't fathom how he'd even ended up in her bathroom. Then she snapped out of it and started hosing him down with the shower hose. The guy immediately jumped up, screaming that she was crazy as hell. Now he felt like he was at the North Pole. He then cracked a joke that Inho wanted to take a shower with him and even offered to do it. All the girl wanted to know was how he ended up in her house and why she found him asleep in her bathroom. He cracked another joke, suggesting they grab breakfast together since he had work in the morning, and even asked to take a shower with her. He realized his boss was about to lose it, and he probably wouldn't make it through the morning, let alone get a good review from her.